Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are staying hydrated throughout this heat wave that many of us have been experiencing, especially with the whole water restrictions. Just in North America, we are experiencing drought in many places. So I thought I would take this chance to show you guys the things that I've been doing specifically on mulching, since it really helps with water retention so that you can continue growing abundance in your garden using less water. So in this video, I'll talk to you guys about the different types of mulch that are available out there, the ones that I personally have in the garden, the different types, and my experience using them. If you guys want to see the different ways I do around here to conserve water beyond mulching, let me know in the comments below so I can make another episode on that. Let's first talk about what mulching is. Mulch is basically any kind of material that would cover the surface of your soil. And usually to do this is besides, aesthetic reasons, because it does really look a lot more tidy once you put like a surface of something. Your space just looks a lot more uniform once the mulch is, set. So mulching not only helps to retain moisture in the soil, but it helps with protecting the root system and the microbes that live in the soil and the stress from, your plants stressing from the environment. So too hot, too cold, mulch is a great insulation for heat and for the cold. A lot of times when you see that your plants really droop in the middle of the day, that's because your plants are getting stressed. When your plants don't look happy, you can check the soil moisture and make sure it is well watered. But that's when mulching comes into play, and that is to really helps to keep the moisture from evaporating so quickly. And there's different types of mulch that you can use to protect the soil, because different materials would hold water differently. Some would hold more water, some would hold less water, but either way, mulching is definitely a really great way to protect your plants and to conserve water. Especially for those of us who hand water, this really saves your efforts by not having to water as frequently. Besides mulching, you can also add different ingredients in your soil mix to retain more moisture, such as your cocoa coir or a lot more compost, which is, great nutrients for your soil and to add more water retention. To check out a really fast way to compost, I will leave that link down below to that video. When it comes to mulching, there is an organic and an inorganic way to do it. The organic way, which I will be talking about in this video, it is basically using any kind of natural products, materials that will compost down. And then inorganic materials would be, well, one example I can think of right now is like rubber, something that would not break down. This is vermiculite that I mix in the soil. It helps to retain moisture and add aeration to the soil, but you can use this as an inorganic mulch. It's kind of pricey to do that actually, but it does work as an inorganic mulch, and I think this is definitely one of my preferences. This one and sand, as consider a more natural material. It takes a really long time to break down. The soil can't really use it in any short amount of time. Let's talk about mulching with natural materials. Now, there are also dyed material, like with natural things like bark you can find at your big box store. They would have dyed materials. So that is something I actually stay away from, because I don't know what kind of dye it is, so I usually just stick with the natural things. Now for organic mulching, you can do living and non-living. So living meaning things that are alive, like plants. You use things like ground cover or vines that you can grow horizontally to just let it trail to cover and shade off your plants. If you guys want to know more about living mulch, check that link down below. I've done a previous episode on. Non-living mulch is usually your brown materials, such as like cardboard you can even shred. That's like a free material that you can use. Or dried leaves if you rake that around, especially in the fall. The most affordable way to mulch would be to use those free materials, or depending on where you live, you can use your resources around you, such as in Asia, you can use like rice hull, which is basically the shells of like the grains, of rice. You can use like cane mulch, which is from sugar cane, just shred it up. And then for us here, we use a lot of straw, which is from the different types of grains that we grow. So there's all different types of brown materials that you can really use. This bed is so full. I hope you guys can see. This is the straw that I'm using. Straw mulch is really great, but you have to know your source or test it out on a small patch, because my recent experience is the beans and the tomatoes had herbicide poisoning, which I will make an episode about that and show you guys how I revived them. But yeah, test it out on a small patch, make sure it is safe to go. This one that's finally safe for me, I picked up after I messed up the first time. This mulch is tiny little straw ones. I really like these mini straw ones. They're actually, I got these from Epic Gardening. I like to choose a light color mulch for the sunny side of the garden, because the light color will reflect light so it wouldn't heat up as much in the soil. And you know, it all depends on how much you mulch in here. Straw mulch, I find that it's more airy and light. It doesn't, you know, mat together, kind of like the other mulch that I will show you in a little bit. So that's really good. It keeps it fluffy and nice aeration. So far, I'd say it does a really good job, especially for strawberries. I mean, there's a reason why people use straws for strawberry. Things that like to retain moisture but are more sensitive to root rot, I think putting a light layer of mulch would really, or straw mulch is really helpful for that. But because straw does hold moisture, but it doesn't hold as much water as other types of mulch. That's why if you want to hold more water, you would add a little thicker layer, usually about 2 to 4 inches. I only do like 1.5 to 2 inches max. Younger plants, if they're more sensitive to root rotting, what you can do is make a little circle, just kind of open up that space around where the plant is to allow a little more aeration and, you know, water evaporation that would prevent root rotting. Straw or any light colored materials is really great for container gardening because it's such a small space. The container tends to heat up too quickly if you have like a dark surface. This is the newest bed in the garden I just assembled. This is my bed full of ashitabas that really love being in this shade and part sun area. So I'm using straw mulch in here. Being in the shade, I'm concerned of using way too much mulch to create root rotting issues. So with something like that for more sensitive plants, just open up a little space around each plant. This is just 1 inch thick. And the thing with straw, sometimes you would get random germinations of like barley or some sort of wheat or something. So it would stick out kind of like pieces of grass. But with the hemp, that wouldn't happen. And this is a living mulch that I'm growing here. It's called jiaogulan, which is immortality herb, also known as poor man's ginseng. Very beautiful, nutritious herb. And it's just got this very beautiful, delicate look. I can't wait to see it fill in this space. Just another great way to grow more food. This is my GreenStalk vertical planter. I got the straw mulch in here and it's retaining moisture really well in here. I think in a design like this, each tier on the top provides shade for the ones below, so you don't need something that holds moisture like crazy. I think the straw mulch is perfect in here. The next option I would put in here would be the hemp. Here are my strawberry towers. One of them is using straws. I thought I would compare the difference just to see how they would do. All the tiers on this tower has straws, and then the one next to it. And the second tower I have the cocoa bean shell mulch. That's one that smells just like chocolate. I loved it so much, and I thought, you know, chocolate and strawberries really go together, right? So let's just try it out and put on the second tower to see how the strawberries respond. Like I was saying earlier, that dark color in the small container really heats up so quickly. I had to eventually switch out the top layer since it gets direct contact with the sun. So the top part, I just switched out the mulch using the hemp now. This hemp mulch I'm so excited about. This is a new product I'm testing out that was sent to me by Forever Garden Beds. They're the brand that sponsored the raised bed that I did one of the episodes showing you guys how I modified it to fit this space. So this is their new product. So far I'm loving it. It looks a little, I mean, the texture is similar to straw mulch, but it has more of like a lighter shade, not as yellow, and it's a little heavy compared to the straw. But I really love the hemp, just the way how it looks. It's more to me, it seems more elegant. It does hold more moisture. So far, I'm noticing it does hold more moisture than straw. Hemp is a very sustainable plant to grow. The entire plant has many different uses, from it being, you know, like a food to something you can use to make ropes, and just so many different usage. I love the idea of using hemp as a mulch. And what they say about the hemp is that it's supposed to insulate better than straw. It holds more moisture and it insulates better. Let's talk about the cocoa bean shell now. Cocoa bean shells are literally from the chocolate that they roast and the chocolate beans. And this is the shells of it. It's really nice to reuse a product like that. The best thing about this is that it smells just like chocolate. When you first lay it out in the garden, your entire garden smells like chocolate. But this aroma would only last for a couple of weeks or a month at the most. Maybe if you leave it if you mulch this in the shade, the smell would last a little longer. But just the look of it, this more delicate, thin mulch that's deep in color. I think it's really nice contrast with especially lighter color pots or walls or something. And the overall look I really love. It's so elegant, but I think it works better as a more like in the ground, kind of like putting bark mulch in the ground. The cocoa mulch really helps to retain a lot of moisture. After you water it in, it really mats together. This is the mulch that really just stick together so much more than other kinds, which is actually really great for water retention, because you find that underneath this matted space, it's just so moist in there. But I am a little concerned that being so matted, they tend to have root rotting issues if the soil stays too wet. And I think just for a little bit more breathing space, I might open up this this cocoa mulch a little bit around the strawberry plants, just a little bit. Besides the top tier in this tower, the rest of them have a little bit of shade. Each tier, like the spot, it's a little bit tucked in. I think so far the strawberries are responding quite all right with the cocoa mulch. I'm just gonna leave it as is. Aside from the cocoa bean shell mulch, there is also another mulch called cocoa mulch, which is actually a coconut core mulch or coconut husk, that you can get shredded, and that can be a great mulch as well. They use stuff like that for like the orchids. You would see bark or even like shredded coconut husk. And cocoa core, I actually use some as a mulch, like the scraps from after harvesting microgreens. That cocoa core, I can just dump it on top and allow it as producing any extra microgreens on the surface of the beds, and it can also act as a mulch. So I did that to that long bed, but I decided to put a light color, so I put the straws on top of that. Anyways, just to let you guys know, that is another option, especially for those of you guys in the tropics. Coconut is such an abundance there. I think it is more sustainable and affordable to use that material. Let's move on to the next one. Here is another example of the hemp mulch. This one had the cocoa shell mulch on, but it was way too hot. I'm sorry for all the background noise, you guys. It's been a particularly noisy day on the day that I want to film. This container, originally I put the cocoa mulch on because I thought aesthetically it would look nice, but I totally forgot about the whole, how dark colors absorb heat. So this part at certain days, actually this week, it's gotten up to like 110, 115 degrees, on the top, the surface, just because it's a dark color. Now, if you put it in the ground, a dark color in the ground in the sun, it would have, like, the heat will be able to kind of spread out more and it'll be fine. But in this container, it got so hot in here, one of the tomato plants even got cooked. This one is doing nice because I planted way back there. That's where the original, I guess, the roots of the plant is. And then I kind of laid it horizontally, and eventually it's setting more roots down. That's why it's getting all these new growth. But the other plant that was in the front was planted, the root was like right over here. So it's just getting straight on with the heat. Like this is the hottest area of the pot. So I had to switch that plant out. So be careful with that. I switched it out with the hemp mulch, and immediately the temperature dropped so much from, you know, just having a light color. And also the hemp, it does get matted a little bit, but nothing like the cacao, the cocoa bean shell mulch. So this is really nice. It stays still kind of airy, but holds a lot of moisture. The texture of the hemp mulch is like, you know, that soft wood, I think it's called, is it balsa wood or something? The stuff that you use for crafts, so soft. This is kind of like, and this one is so light, but it feels like really light, soft wood shredded. I love it. This is the front garden, going with a dark color like the bark. This is pine bark that I purchased at like a Home Depot or something. So this is a pretty inexpensive material that you can purchase, but there's also wood chips. If you can contact your local arborist, you know, they might have that at a very affordable price or even for free. You just got to go there and pick it up. But the ones I've contacted require a small fee, but the biggest issue was that they would actually deliver it in a huge truck of it, and I have no space for that much wood chips. But wood chips is great. It is great for more established bushes and trees, just thicker plants, because it has like a deeper root system, especially with, you know, brown materials like wood chips takes longer to break down, but it holds moisture really well. In fact, the soil, the water retention in wood chips or bark, it's just a thicker material, and it really absorbs water a lot better than any kind of mulch that I've just showed you earlier. So that's the benefit of that. But as far as those of you who like to germinate your seeds, you direct sow your seeds, it might get a little heavy for your seeds to germinate, especially if you have fine seeds. So things like that, usually with direct sowing your seeds, I would prefer using straw mulch instead and just doing a light layer of that to keep the soil moist, but not a whole thick layer, because mulching is actually a really great way to suppress weeds, which would also mean the seeds will have a hard time germinating if you direct sow them. Bark and wood chips, although I'm sure some gardeners out there do use it for their vegetable garden, but usually it is more for more established plants and bushes like trees, because they have deep root system that there's no issue with the wood chips robbing nitrogen. An alternative to wood chips would be this pine bark or any kind of bark you can find out there, and it does hold the water really well. The only thing with that I say from with the grow pots is that when I kind of open up the bark mulch here, the soil is really nice and moist. I would have to water this 1 to 2 times daily on a hot day, but once I put in this mulch, and even just at like 2 inches thick, this bark mulch, I only need to water it about every other day. The felt pots though, what I do notice is that it tends to dry out a little bit on the sides, so that's the only thing about it, but all around the center of the pot with the mulch, and it really helps to retain the moisture. Let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite kind of mulch to use in the garden? If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And for more plants and seeds, be sure to check out my website. It's a really great way to support this channel. And for certain things that I've talked about in this video, I will put the link of certain products that you guys may be interested in the description box below as well. Stay cool, stay hydrated. I will see you right back here in the next video. Bye.